Ramba Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Sure, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Oh, your voice is very low.
Okay. Can you hear me, Prabhuji, now?
Little better.
Okay, I think I need to change my laptop. Maybe I will take a different laptop from tomorrow. There is a problem with my microphone, it seems.
Oh,
Okay. Uh, Prabhuji, I want to understand about this Kala energy of the Lord. So it was said in that time, Kala energy, Kala of the Lord. So it was said that when there is total annihilation, all the living entities along with the settled body, right? With their settled body, they take shelter in the Kala energy. They are being maintained by the Kala energy when there is total annihilation. And also the Kala energy supports the fruitive activities of the living entity. So can you elaborate on these two things, please?
Well, Kala Shakti of the Lord is uh, the energy by which this material creation is made possible. Uh, the prime distinction between material and spiritual creation is the effect of Kala, which is so prominently visible in the material existence, is conspicuous or it's practically absent in the spiritual world. So, Kala Shakti practically brings transformation in entire material existence, in the sense that no living entity can maintain their position eternally in whatever position they may be. They cannot maintain their position or their situation eternally. And everything gets transformed, everything gets changed. Six kinds of transformations are brought into this material creation by the influence of Kala Shakti. In fact, Bhagavatam describes Kala as, Parama Dustara, insurmountable. Kala Parama Dustara. That time is actually insurmountable. Pratikriya na yasyora, kutasya karchit prabhu. There is no pratikriya to this Kala. Nobody can bring any countermeasure or some remedy to stop the effects of Kala. So another meaning of Kala is perceived in this creation as death. Like Krishna also says, Kalosmi lokakshakrata. I am Kala, I am time, and I bring destruction to all the creations. So in that way, Kala is actually non-different from Krishna.
Thank you, Ruji. In the same lines, right? I mean, 2 days back I was reading a verse from Bhagavad Gita which says that the soul has no past, no future. I mean, the three colors doesn't apply to the soul. And in the spiritual world, uh, we see there is days, there are nights, and devotees are experiencing their activities, and time is also progressing. So, just want to understand the difference between that kala and what the kala is being spoken in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, so that's why I said, in the spiritual and material world, the prime difference between the effect of Kala is Kala brings transformation in the material world, but there is no transformation in the spiritual world. The transformation, that six kinds of transformation, we say birth, death, growth, sustenance, deterioration. All these transformations are absent in the spiritual world. Yes, there is day and night. There is also passage of time in the spiritual world, but that passage of time is only to facilitate the different pastimes of the Lord, called Ashtakaliya Leela. So Krishna has Ashtakaliya Leela. They are called, you know, Krishna's pastimes, eightfold pastimes, in different time periods. So they are called Ashtakali Leela. So Krishna does sleep in the evening. After taking his dinner, he does sleep. Then he goes to the forest and performs Rasla with the gopis in the midnight. And, early morning, during one of he will just come back home and sleep again. And as soon as sun rises, before sunrise, Krishna will get up and then, with his friends, cowherd friends, he would just leave for the forest. After taking his morning, duties, performing his morning duties, he would leave for the forest. And the forest, he will perform different pastimes with the cowherd boys. So in this way, there are Ashtakalila, there are different pastimes Krishna performs at different times. But the influence of time in terms of deteriorating everything in this world is absent in the spiritual world. So Kala is there, is only as a facilitator to Krishna's pastimes.
So when it is said that there is no past and future for the soul, right? In the spiritual world, does that mean the living entity, I mean, the soul eternally lives in the present moment? I mean, it's eternally absorbed in that present moment, or how do you understand?
So see, understand past, present, and future in this way. The past, present, and future in this world is different in the way that everything is transformed. Say, for example, I buy a new home. After 5 years, the home is transformed. It is no more new. You can see it's deteriorating. The paint is coming off. The things are changing. Outside, the walls develop some cracks and all. So you have to do the maintenance work, right? But that effect of deterioration is not visible in the spiritual world. 20 years back, my body was much more younger. I was more energetic. But now it's not. And 20 years from now, it will be much more deteriorating. So these effects, deteriorating effects of time are not there in the spiritual world. So Krishna is always 16-year-old boy, and all his friends, all his devotees, they remain of the same age. They don't change. The calves remain calves, the cows remain, the cows. The elderly gopis, they remain always elderly. There's no further deterioration. So whatever constitutionally devotees are serving in whatever way, they remain like that. There is no change due to the passage of time.
Okay, Prabhuji, I understand. Thank you, Prabhuji. It's like the activities are constant. When there is no present, future and past means the activities are going to remain constant.
Yes, I mean, in that way, you can say, as it says, in Brahma Samhita also, na yatra, what is that? Shriya kanta kanta parama purusha kalpataravu, Ruma bhumi shintamani ganamai toyam amritam, katha ganam natyam gavana api vamshi priya saki, chidanandam jyoti paramapi tatha aswadam api cha. Nayatra, what is that? Nayatra.
When I'm forgetting.
I'm forgetting that verse. The verse says actually that there is even one kshana is not passing the way it is passing in this material world. Because even a moment passing in this material world is actually lost.
Oh, Nimeshadakyo va vrajati nagi yatra api samaya.
Yes. Nimesha dhakyo va vrajati nahi yatra api samaya. So the time, even a nimesha time, like blinking of eye, that much time is not passing there. Not that the time is not there. There is sun rising, there is sunset also in the Golok Vrindavan. But the way we perceive the time passing in this world, that way it doesn't pass there in the spiritual world. Now, we can, maybe try to have a glimpse through a talk, but it's very difficult to understand or comprehend what it actually is, because there is no material body. There is nothing material in the spiritual world. Everything is Satchidanand. Everything is even, the dust particles there, they are Chidganas. They are living particles. So there is, it's actually very, very difficult to comprehend the experience of no passing of time in the spiritual world.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
So the best thing is actually, yes, we can hear, but the best thing is you go there and experience it. How it is.
Yeah, please bless Prabhuji so that we'll get it someday.
Thank you. Satyananda Gauranga Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Udanda Pranam. Prabhuji, what is Hiranyagarbha? Is it Brahmanda or like what is that? Subtle, it's mentioned as subtle is Hiranyagarbha. What is Hiranyagarbha?
Okay.
It was written as subtle form is Hiranyagarbha.
Subtle form of what, Prabhu?
The three things, right? Virat is a gross and Hiranyagarbha is subtle form. And third one is creative energy is Brahma. So what is Hiranyagarbha means? Like Brahma is creator. He is the energy which creates a material. Maybe it creates the effects of Kala. But what is subtle form of Hiranyagarbha? What is that?
Well, like we hear from Bhagavad Gita, Bhumi apanalo vayur khamano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtada. So Krishna explains there's the eightfold energy, 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements. Man, buddhi and ahankar, these are subtle elements. So similarly, this is of course eightfold energy, but in Bhagavatam we heard about the 24 elements. So 24 out of 24, the 8 elements which Krishna describes in Gita are same, but there are 16 further more elements. So the 3 elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, and then senses, the other senses, like the sense of seeing, sense of smelling, sense of touch, sense of taste. So these senses are also subtle, and the object of the senses, namely the 5 tanmatras, they are also subtle. So those all actually are part of you can say Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means the subtle elements, and gross elements is material nature. Of course, material nature, ultimately Mahatattva is one subtle element which comprises all the gross and subtle elements. But you can say these divisions are in terms of when the one element of Mahatattva starts further disintegrating into the gross and subtle elements. So gross elements are one category and subtle elements are another category. So Hiranyagarbha is actually referred as subtle elements.
Prabhu, it means it's a total single name given to all the subtle elements classified. So all are collectively known as Hiranyagarbha.
Yes.
At least we can roughly assume like that. We can understand Hiranyagarbha is collection of subtle elements, or Hiranyagarbha is the behind all subtle elements.
Yes. You can say that way.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Anuradha Mataji, you can ask your question.
Prabhuji, can you explain the last verse? Today we have read text 17. I didn't get purport, Prabhuji. Can you explain that purport, Prabhuji?
Okay, Vijay Prabhu, could you display the 17th verse? Okay. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Okay. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus and the world. even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of the human being, no one therefore can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. Okay, so this verse is actually talking about Brahma trying to understand the creation, or trying to understand the source of his own creation by different ways and means for very, very long time. It says millennium, and the account of millennium is not even given. Prabhupada doesn't say what that millennium is actually equal to. It says it's impossible to even calculate in solar years. So Brahma actually tried to understand this material creation, but it was still not possible for him to understand. And Brahma has tremendous intelligence. It says in Bhagavatam, there's actually one statement which says, in terms of creativity, Brahma has the brain that like of the Supreme Lord. And yet Brahma was not able to understand creations. So that is just to give us a glimpse that it's futile to try to understand this entire material creation, because at times even Brahma not able to understand. So one should not. This actually statement makes us is meant to make us more humble. That even if we are capable, no matter whatever capabilities are, we cannot understand even the material creation, not to speak of the spiritual creations. Like many times we discuss the 5th canto of Bhagavatam and we get completely puzzled.
Thanks, Prabhuji.
Sukeshna Mataji, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, I was just wondering that in this purport, when I was reading, it said Virat or Hiranyagarbha. So I thought Virat Purusha itself is called Hiranyagarbha, Prabhu. So you were just mentioning to Prabhu's question that it is subtle form. So is it like, I'm just trying to understand this, is it like human beings have their gross body and their mind, intelligence, false ego is their subtle body? Does that mean that the gross form of material form of Lord is Virat Purusha, and the mind, intelligence, false ego of that Virat Purusha's form is Hiranyagarbha?
I don't remember reading anything like that, but Hiranyagarbha in one way, yes, is a subtler form. So Virat Rupa, of course, encompasses everything, gross and subtle elements, everything. But Hiranyagarbha is more subtler. It refers to subtle form. So it could be, but I never remember reading anything like that, that Hiranyagarbha can be said as subtle body of the Virat Purusha. Okay, yeah. Because gross body is very clearly mentioned, right, Prabhu? For Virat Purusha, the trees are the hair of the Virat Purusha. The mountains are the bones. So I was just wondering if there's any say of what is the mind. Actually, moon is maybe, the mind, right? No. Maybe I can look into, what the Vaishnava Acharyas have spoken. This verse I can take up and maybe analyze little later. Sure, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, because I was also thinking that moon is actually the representative of, moon is the cause of the mental changes, right? So I was wondering, yeah. So yes, Prabhu, that'll be great. Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Oh, I think I remember that Hiranyagarbha was mentioned as in the 2nd canto, the subtle body for the Virat. I can, yeah. Okay, if you remember, you can maybe bring the reference, because I'm not able to recollect anything like that. But yeah, it'll be good if you can, if you have some reference. I was thinking maybe I'll go into the commentary of Vishnu Chokki Thakur and also Sridhar Swami and see if they have mentioned anything here related to Hiranyagarbha. Sure.
But if you have some reference from second canto,
Actually, there is one reference in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I will just post it. So that does say that Hiranyagarbha is subtle, but I don't know if the whole thing would. So yeah, don't worry about the whole thing up there, proposed to such a big purport. But in the down, so I'm sorry. Are you able to see if I'm actually? One second. Yeah, here it says that.
okay, this is what you posted, Madhuri, 3:8:15.
Yes, Prabhuji. I'm just trying to see if I posted the right one. Yeah. In the end, the last line, if you see.
First born living being, unlike all the other, there's no material father.
Sorry. Actually, I don't know. I think I don't know. Oh, that's funny that I posted. I looked at something. Okay, let me post again. I don't know. This is 3:8:15. That's what I posted, right?
Yeah, 3:8:15.
Into the universal lotus flower, that one. But the last one looks different to what I posted. That's so funny. Okay, it says that the firstborn living entity, unlike all others, have no material father, and thus he is called self-born or Swayambhu. He goes to sleep with Narayana at the time of devastation when there is when there is another creation. He is born in this way. From this description, we have the conception of the three: the gross Virat form, the subtle Hiranyagarbha, and material creative force Brahma.
Okay. Okay.
As you said, subtle, but yeah, if you could look at it as if there's a description.
So this is 15, right? So yeah, I will try to.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhuri.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that'll be very helpful. Thank you, Prabhu. I always took Virat and Hiranyagarbha as the same thing. I never realized that it is actually the subtle. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Ritu Mataji, you can ask a question.
No question, Prabhuji. Just that was, I think, cut. So I just posted the last half of it just to continuation.
I see. So here it's mentioned, I'm reading it, Prabhuji. He goes to sleep with Narayana at the time of devastation, and when there is another creation, he is born in this way. From this description, we have the conception of three: the grass Virat form, the subtle Hiranyagarbha, and the material creative force Brahma.
Okay, so it's very clear. I think Hiranyagarbha is nothing but the subtle body of the Supreme Lord in the material form of the universe. So Virat Rupa is actually gross form. Hiranyagarbha is the subtle body, and in this way we can actually understand. Yeah, it makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing, Sukeshwari Madhi and Vijay Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Actually, this is
Ritu Mataji.
So actually, this is yeah. Bro, in case you come across more things, let us know.
Sure.
I never ever thought about a subtle form for Virat Purusha talk. So yeah, it's just pretty interesting.
I think we don't have any more questions, Prabhuji.
No, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, you get it.
I was just reminding about a Leela. I'm sorry. I thought the questions are over.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. My question is.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, what form soul take when the soul enters in Goloka or with Krishna? So what form that soul get?
Actually, soul doesn't take any form when it enters to Golok Vrindavan. The soul actually leaves the material body and revives or enters into the original form of the spiritual world. So all of us, we have a spiritual form, the form which is our constitutional position. It's called Swarupa. So we enter in Golok Vrindavan with that form, leaving all the material conception and material forms behind here. So for example, right now I think that this body, male body, is actually my form, but that's an artificial imposition. That's not my form. But soul also has some form, which is spiritual form, not material form. So before living entity enters into the spiritual world, he actually revives that form. He starts recognizing his identity with that form, and at the appropriate time when he leaves the body, he actually goes in that spiritual form to the spiritual world.
So, Prabhuji, it is said that cows are also there in Goloka. Calves are all there, bumblebees are there, butterflies are there, trees are there. So, these are also formed.
Yes.
So, it means species are there also. Demons are also there in Goloka Vrindavan.
Yes. They are there, but their forms are eternal there. So bees are also eternal. The parrots are also eternal. Cows are also eternal. And they are not limited like here. They are limited. Here the cow can remain always cow only. But there in the spiritual world, cow can take any form it likes to please Krishna. I think we have discussed this a few times, but if Krishna is walking and walking with one of his cowherd friends, and Krishna says to his friend, "I'm feeling very hot. I want to take bath," and there's no lake there. So the boy only becomes the lake because he has ability to serve Krishna in so many ways. So the boy doesn't stand there as boy; he becomes a lake. So Krishna enters into the lake, swims around, takes nice bath, and comes out. And after taking bath, Krishna is feeling cold. He says, "I'm feeling hot, actually, not cold. He says, I'm feeling very hot, and there's no tree around." The boy becomes the tree. And Krishna lies down under the shade of the tree. Okay. And after some time, Krishna gets up, and the boy, again, from tree becomes the boy and start walking with Krishna. So there's no limitation in the spiritual world. Devotees, although every living entity has a constitutionally a form, and they always remain in that form, but they can transform, they can change their form to please or to serve Krishna, whatever they like, whatever way Krishna is pleased.
Okay, so Prabhuji, demons are also there. They exist in Golok Vrindavan. So what are they? Demons. Means I heard somewhere that demons are also in Golok Vrindavan.
No, Mother, there are no demons in Golok Vrindavan.
Okay, Prabhuji, I heard that in our on Prabhuji's class only, that demons are also there because Krishna want to increase that rasa, that bhava in all gopas and gopis, to just save us from that demon. To increase that bhava, Krishna create demons also in Golok Vrindavan. Is it true or?
No, Mother, there are no demons in Golok Vrindavan. There are no demons in Golok Vrindavan. Prabhupada actually mentioned many times, there are no demons in Golok Vrindavan. When Krishna wants to fight or have the rasa of fighting with demons, he comes to the material world, where there are ample of demons. But in Golok Vrindavan, there are no demons.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Can I just share one point, Prabhuji, if you permit? So Jayapataka Maharaj was telling in one of his lectures that there are two things which can happen only in the material world. One is Krishna killing the demons, Krishna fighting with demons. It exists only in material world. And second thing is preaching and book distribution can be done only in this material world, because in spiritual world everybody is a devotee. So demons for killing demons, Krishna comes here. There are no demons up there in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I have
Thank
a
you, Prabhu.
question on that. Sorry, I don't know if somebody else has a question.
Go ahead, Madhuri.
Prabhu, so I was just thinking that what do Mahaprabhu and his devotees do in Goloka Vrindavan? There is no book distribution.
They do eternally Sankirtan. Kirtan
Okay.
is the special prerogative of Audarya Dham, Navdeep Dham. So in Navdeep, in the spiritual world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu constantly immersed in performing Kirtan, Sankirtan with the devotees.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Really. So I think we'll conclude with a small pastime. I was reading today Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, and it explains that once upon a time, the Bhumi Devi actually became very much distressed, and because of the so many demoniac people, Daityas, the number of Daityas actually increased on the earth, and they were ruling the earth. And they were Daityas, not that exactly they were sons of Diti, but by their actions they had become Daityas. So they were not exactly, generally the sons of Diti are called Daitya. So they were not sons of Diti, but they still are referred as Daityas because of their actions. So sons of Diti, they have certain pattern of their activities. So same activities were performed these kings. So therefore, Mother Earth was very much distressed. So she took the form of a cow and she went to Brahma. So Brahma she went to is described as Vairaja Brahma. She doesn't go to Brahma and Satyaloka. No. So now generally we hear that Bhumi Devi went to Brahma and Brahma took the Bhumi and all the demigods and went to Shirisagar. But Vishwanath Thakur actually explained that Bhumi Devi went to Vairaja Brahma. She didn't go to Brahma and Satyaloka because that time Brahma was hearing the musical performance in the Brahmaloka. We have heard that pastime, right? When King Raivata, he goes to Satyaloka. This happened in Satyuga. Satyuga, Raivata king was there. He had two daughters, Revati and Varuni. So he took these two daughters and went to Satyaloka to ask Brahmaji whom he should marry his daughters to. And Brahma that time was busy in hearing the musical performance or the songs sung by the two Gandharvas, Haha and Huhu. So the duration of the song was a little longer in Satyaloka. Of course, it was for, not very long, for a few moments only. But it went on for a long time, and then when it stopped, Raivata asked, my dear, Brahma, tell me whom I should marry my daughters to. And Brahma started laughing. He said, whomever you might have thought to be suitable husband for your daughter, they all are dead and gone. In fact, their generations and generations are finished. Because on the earth, Satyuga passed by, Treta Yuga went by, and Dwapar also almost ended. It was the end of Dwapar Yuga. So Brahmaji said to Raivata that you can offer your daughters to Balaram. So it is explained that because Raivata was also waiting for Brahma, therefore Bhumi had no chance to go and meet Brahma there. So she actually went to Vairaja Brahma, who lives on top of Mount Sumeru. And Vairaj Brahma actually took Bhumi Devi along with Indra and Lord Shiva, and he went to Shirasagar. He was thinking that maybe if, he was thinking that my responsibility is to do creation. And Right now, what Bhumi Devi needs is maintenance. Maintaining the earth and destroying the demons. So there are two activities need to be done simultaneously. Maintaining the earth and destroying the demons. So he took Indra and the host of demigods along with Indra and Lord Shiva. So he thought, even tomorrow, if Lord Vishnu thinks he doesn't want to do himself, then he will tell Shiva to destroy and he'll tell Indra to maintain. So in thinking like this, Brahma actually went to Kshirosagar, taking Bhumi Devi, who had taken the form of a cow, and they went to Kshirosagar to pray to Lord Vishnu. So I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.